This is Justin Lundquist of Lundquist Knives, and you're listening to the Bladeology podcast.
All right, we're going to jump into it like we do every week. Welcome to another episode of the Bladeology podcast. We are on this week with our original host lineup, and we do have a guest with us. This is the vocal representation of Jeremiah Burbank from PVK Vegas.
Nick Chuprin of NCC Knives.
And Elijah Isham of Isham Blade Works.
Awesome. And who do we have on with us this week?
Gavin and Grant Hawk with Hawk Knives.
Super. Hey, thanks for taking time to come talk with us and sit down and go over some updates. So I want to welcome you guys back. You've dared to come on a second time, which is pretty exciting. So what have you guys been up to? We haven't talked to you in a while, and I know you guys have been busy working, right?
Yeah, I think that's going to be the hard part. I don't know if we got any news or not. It's more the same.
We've been making deadlocks, fulfilling orders. Finally getting to the end of this last batch 7. So it took a little bit longer than expected, but I think we've got 50 knives or less to deliver. And then we'll be opening the books back up and making more knives.
Oh, that's awesome. So you're just cooking right along. So no real manufacturing hiccups in this process, just pretty much streamlining the manufacture of the Deadlock.
Well, we've had a few hiccups, but which set us back a little bit. A lot of it's just learning pains, and we're both coming from R&D and building a shop and hiring employees, and so just getting all of the logistics and things like that lined out so that knives are going out the door every week. It's been a little challenging, but we're getting better at it all the time. So we're hoping this next batch goes really smooth and we can get things out the door real quick.
We've had a few slowdowns with outside sources of coatings and materials and one thing and another, partly because the rest of the world is shut down more or less. So that slowed us up a little bit.
Yeah, I know that's tricky. Gavin, you and I had talked a little bit about that, but just the process of literally just making that many knives is tricky. But you guys seem to have, like you said, just sort of just going and conquering every obstacle as it comes, sort of say.
Yeah, and there's always unexpected things that come up and timelines that get all distorted. It's tough because we're not on our timeline, we're on other people's timeline. So again, like my dad was saying, water jet services and EDM and coatings and screws, and it's just, you think you order these things plenty ahead of time and something goes wrong, shipments shipped to the wrong place, the water jet breaks down, it's just, there's all sorts of problems like that. So we already have a jump on the next batch. I think I have almost everything, all the material in stock, water jet cut and ready to go. So that's going to help a lot. Just making everything go smoothly and being able to, put knives out on a timely manner.
Nice. Okay, and we saw that, or everybody saw on Instagram that you acquired another machine, so that must be helping out.
Yeah, so we have 2 new Hawses and 1 old Haws. That's been great. And the hardest thing is just keeping parts in front of it. Because like I was saying with water jet and things like that, so you got 3 machines, and we were only running 2 machines at a time because we were always waiting for material. So the last I don't know, the last month or so, we've had all 3 machines running every day, making parts for this next batch. So that's really going to speed the whole process up.
Okay, so I mean, literally, with each batch, the next batch gets that much easier.
Correct. Yes.
Wow.
And we hired employees, and so getting everybody trained and knowing what to do and what to spot and doing less rework, all of that helps a lot going to the next batch. So everybody's more familiar with what they're doing already, and can catch problems before they become a problem.
Right. Okay. So remind me, what's the next batch? So you're on batch
7. So yeah, the next batch will be 8.
Batch will be 8. Okay.
And we're still kind of debating or trying to figure out the best way to proceed. This last time we took deposits, and we told everybody it was going to be 6+ months, but 2 or 3 weeks into it, we were getting emails from people wondering where their knives at. So we're debating on whether or not we want to take deposits or just build knives and sell them outright. I don't know. We're still trying to figure out how to make that work. Taking deposits is nice because you get a big, influx of cash, and that just helps the whole process and everything, all the wheels turn. So anyways, we're just trying to debate about that and see what we're going to do. Last time I had in big, bold letters that it would, take X amount of months. And again, you get people in 3 weeks asking, where's their knife and why hasn't it been shipped yet? And stuff like that. So I think in general, most people are okay, but you just get a couple of those guys that kind of ruin it.
Yeah, usually every time I do the same thing, it's not usually where's the knife. It's usually like, oh, how far am I? Like they'll see the first one get done, or it's like I'm still machining the parts. I'm like, oh, how far out am I? I'm like, I don't really know. Like you still see me machining the parts. I still the first ones will start shipping out 5 weeks from now, and the last ones will be 3 months from now.
Right.
Yeah, it's like I'm as impatient as the next guy. It's like you can't expect it to be finished right away. It's not like you're ordering it from Amazon.
Right. Yeah. And so some people have that mentality. And I had one guy that apparently he had sent us an email and we didn't get it. And so then he wrote us this angry email that he was going to go down to the police station. He was going to file a report of fraud, that he never got his knife and we took his deposit money, and just, went on and all of this stuff he was going to do. And it was the first email that I had received from this guy. So anyway, I just was as nice as I could possibly be and told him to take his money back and please don't talk to me again.
That brings up an interesting point. So communication, right? That's kind of what you're talking about. You're saying that people aren't reading the text or seeing the clear instructions in front of them. I know that you guys had put together a text message alert system to communicate directly with customers and to like batch text people updates. How had that been going?
That actually works really well. There's a couple things I don't like about it. When we first decided to do that, we were trying to get rid of the our low open rate with newsletters. So you send out a newsletter, and we're pretty lucky. We're getting 50% open rate, which is fairly high in our category. But still, that's 50% of the people that aren't opening the email at all. And it's not because they don't want to open it. It's because it's going into a spam filter. It's they have an email that they set up just for newsletters, and they're not checking it. And there's a whole bunch of reasons why people don't get newsletters. So we initially went to text messaging because they have like a 98% open rate or delivery rate for text messages. So we thought that would be a really good way to get people. The problem with it is that it only sends out X amount of messages at a time. So if we've got 7,000 people on the list, it'll send out 500 and then it'll wait a minute, and then it'll send out another 500 and then it'll wait a minute. And for what we're trying to do, which is send out an alert like, okay, we have knives ready, click the link and you could buy a knife. Well, by the time it gets to the last person, the knives are going to be sold out. But since we started using it, we realized that people are way more apt to respond to a text message than they are an email. And so our communication with our customers has increased by a lot, because somebody gets a text with some type of update, and they respond and they ask questions. So that's been really good to just to communicate with our customers on what's going on, and an open communication for them to send us messages and ask questions. And it goes both ways. When we don't always get all the emails. Somebody sends us an email, and I check my junk mail religiously, but still, there's emails that I just don't get. I don't know what the hell happens to emails, but with text messaging, it's a lot more of a surefire communication method. So it's been great in that sense.
Now, when you were in the newsletter, were you running the one that's included with, like, the free one that's with your website, or a paid one?
It's a paid one. So we use MailChimp. And we pay a lot for it actually every month. And in general, it's a good newsletter, and we like the service. But it just seems, typically open rates are kind of low.
Yeah, because I had that issue of mine, and then I realized quickly that because my website came with a newsletter, and I had about 40% openings until I realized one of the benefits of the paid version was I didn't need the amount the paid one gave you, because the free one was up to like 2,500 subscriptions. Then I realized a lot of those are doubles, and some of these people sign up to the newsletter 4 or 5 times. Right. So they'll get the email 4 or 5 times, and then you go to their spam. And I realized, so I got the paid one, and I got rid of all the doubles, and it was about 20% were doubles. And at that point, my opening rate went up to about 70, 75%. I'm just wondering if you were using a paid one or not.
Yeah, and it seemed when I had a lot less people on the list, my open rate was way better. But now we're at, I think on the Deadlock, on the OTF newsletter, we're almost at 7,000.
Wow.
And I don't remember the last open rate, but it's close to 50%.
I would have to guess, just because, and it would make sense with what you were saying as far as the amount of people opening it was a lot more when there were less of them. I wonder, it'd be hard to tell exactly, but I'm going to guess that's a fair amount of your customers are, we'll say 50-50. 50% of them are completely diehard Hawk fans looking to get a Deadlock at any cost. And I would guess, again, just from the top of my head, that the other 50% are people who are super diehard fans for a few months until they realize it's really hard to get. And then they might still be really interested, and then that might be your lower open rate. I mean, I know I do talk to a lot of people about your knives and about knives in general, and I think some people will get really into something and they want to get it until they realize it's like kind of hard to get, at which point they might tune out for a little while. I mean, is that unreasonable? Is it, you think that's what you're dealing with a little bit?
It could be. I think that I get people that unsubscribe, of course. So I would think that, and I get emails from people right after drops generally, where they'll say, I've been trying for 3 years to get a knife, and this sold out in 10 minutes or whatever it was, and this is just ridiculous, and I'm unsubscribing.
Right.
So I think a lot of those people just get frustrated, and then if they keep getting updates and emails, it just frustrates them more, and they are probably more apt to just unsubscribe.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what it is. A couple of times MailChimp has a feature where you can resend something to those that didn't open it. And we did that a couple of times and then had about the same open rate. So, 50% of them didn't open it. So then I resend it to them, and 50% of those people opened it. And so I don't know. It's strange. I don't understand what's fully going on there. I can see how some newsletters would get really low open rates because, they just don't care anymore. But for people that want a deadlock, like, they're on the list because they want to buy the deadlock. That it's not like I farmed these people or I bought, a list of emails. They have to go to the website and they have to click the link and sign up. So I don't know. I just think a lot of it is they just don't get it. And I know that some email systems have spam filters that don't even allow you to really look at your spam box. I think Gmail is pretty bad about that. I don't actually have Gmail, so I kind of making this up a little bit, but from what I've heard is there's settings in your Gmail account that just goes to a black hole. And unless you unlock it so that you have them going into an actual spam filter, you don't even see them. They're just not even there. So
that's true. I've had issues with that in the past.
Yeah. So
One time my damn account was just stopped, and I couldn't even get any emails for a while.
Right. So yeah. I think it's stuff like that that's causing it, but I don't really know.
Well, it's funny with the disconnect with people not understanding that you guys are making the knives. They put the deposit and they're like, "Where's my knife?"
Right.
That line of thinking allows me to think that person might not be entirely familiar with how this process works. We're also used to it, so it seems simple. It's that's obviously, but to someone who just woke up and read an article or saw a video about the knife, they might think it would be a little more, I don't know, straightforward, click buy, that's it.
Right. Yeah, and I'm kind of surprised. We put a lot of detail in the emails, and some people just don't read the emails. They go right to that buy now button, and they just want to get it as quick as possible, and they just don't get any information. So we've been purposely sending out an email ahead of time that has all the information with no links, and then we follow up with an email with a link and very little information. But I say that, but I'd say 95% of the people are great. They send almost apologetic emails, "Sorry to bother you. I just was really curious where I'm at on the list," stuff like that. So it's still kind of rare, but it's one of those things that
puts a damper on your day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, I'm in the same boat with that. I started doing the same thing where about 3 days early, I'll release all the information for the pre-order, all the options, all the pricing. I used to have drop-down boxes, and you have to choose everything, but it's 6 drop-down boxes for handle, blade, hardware, anodizing, whatever. People rush through it, and about 20% of the orders every time I take, I'd have to manually track them after, and I'll do the updates manually, and then something always gets missed. I started doing that, and I was like, look, it's just to copy this, fill it out, and then whenever you're ready to order, when it goes live, just paste it and go. If you don't paste it, you just fill it out and blank, you forfeit your order. I started getting that. My deposits are only $50-$60, but so my deposits are not refundable within the time frame that I said the knives will go out. After that point, they're refundable because I'm like, the whole point of deposit is it helps you build a knife. If deposits are refundable, there was no point to take them.
Yeah, it's logical.
Yeah, if I say it'll be out in 4 weeks and up to 3 months, and when it's already 5 months in, if you need your deposit back, I'll give it to you after that time.
Right. All right. So a little bit about the process of getting a deadlock. I have a question about a post I saw on Instagram about testing a deadlock. I wanted to ask about the very inspired contraption that you guys posted a few months ago, where it was testing the cycles of a deadlock.
Yeah, you want to take that one?
Well, and so I'm not exactly sure.
He's talking about the.
I know, but what the question is,
Grant, I wanted to pick your brain a little bit about it. I've actually seen a couple of these machines from different people, but I have to say that one was the most intriguing. It seemed to have some sort of magnetic system where it registered the blade as open or close. I just kind of wanted to talk a little bit about it. How'd you come up with that?
So there's, I don't know where things come from, I guess, but essentially it counts it in two different ways. One of them is a mechanical counter, which counts every time that it tries to open, and then the other is what is it? What is that? It's like an electric eye or something that says how many times it actually opened. So if those two numbers don't jive, then it must mean that it missed the beat somewhere. So we keep track of it with in two different ledgers. They usually run pretty close together, but it gives us an idea if we're having a misfire here and there. Anyway, so I don't know how we came up with it. We just started with the knife and a way to open and close it, and then a way to monitor the successes and the failures.
Okay, and remind me if that's allowed. How many cycles did you guys get up to on the most recent mech redesign?
Well, maybe I have to ask Gavin. So what did we do?
I forgot. I wrote it down somewhere, and I kind of just was satisfied. And so I think we were at 80,000 cycles, and everything was fine and working good. And I had tested what I was trying to test. We had some small little difficulties and a little bit of re-engineering that we had to do, and so I just wanted to make sure we were getting past a certain point.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a serious. Even if that's relatively off by 10,000 or so, that's still much higher than the standard quote for cycle rate. So that's great. That's excellent.
What is the standard quote for?
I don't know if I could really. That's a lot.
I want to hear the standard.
Yeah. I want to know exactly what number it is.
Normally, the answer
what are we trying
I get
to beat?
is somewhere around like 30 to 50. Is kind of where like if it reaches that, then it's like okay, that's pretty good. I haven't talked to Josh at Piranha in a while, but I know that he was also in that neighborhood, and I would consider that shop to be similarly sized to yours. I don't know if you're familiar with him or not, but he was. I think he was running.
We know him.
Like in that neighborhood a while back, and that would be the only person that I could really. Yeah, I don't know anybody else who makes OTFs, so that would be it. So testing the knife has developed along with manufacturing the knife. What about finishing the knife? How's that looking? Are you guys thinking about offering the same finishes, different finishes for the new batch? Are you happy with the finishes you have?
Yeah. So on finishes, we're going to have a couple of the old options and a couple of new options, but less options. So last time I had carbon fiber overlays, marbled overlays, and titanium overlays. And that was one of the things that kind of made it difficult and screwed things up for us was, waiting for the titanium to get here and then not getting all the titanium and then tearing the setup down and starting to make carbon fiber and then running out of carbon fiber and going back to doing some titanium. And then the marbled carbon fiber showed up. So we started making that. And so So this time we're going to stick with one overlay option to start, and maybe not even take as many orders. Take orders for maybe 3 months instead of the 6 months that we did last time, and just do carbon fiber. And then once we're done with this batch, then the next batch will be all titanium, or marbled, or whatever it is. But adding the 3 options of overlays, it just adds a lot of options, because you add that on top of, single or double edge blades, the blasted hardware, tumbled hardware, heat colored hardware, and then adding 3 more options. It just magnifies everything every time you do that. So that's one of the lessons we kind of learned from this last batch, is a little less options.
Okay. So options are good, but good to trim them down so you can kind of streamline the process just for doing one material.
Correct.
At least all at one time in one batch.
Yeah, that's right. And then one thing we're going to start doing, we've done a lot of experimenting with doing solid colors with heat coloring. So generally we do a torched, a flamed heat color, which gives you, all sorts of different colors. I don't personally like electro-anodizing things unless it's in an inlay, or it's a line, or it's a place that you can't really rub on it, because the electro-anodizing just wears off so quickly compared to the heat-colored anodizing. So we ran a bunch of experiments, and we can get a really nice blue that by putting it in the oven and certain time and temperature, that looks really nice. And we can also do a really good bronze. So we're going to introduce some color schemes like that. And we're probably going to introduce some DLC stuff. DLC is always tricky because you have to wait 3 to 4 weeks for the DLC to come back. And so we just have to get our scheduling all ready so that we can, be a month ahead of time and have it in stock. But so anyways, carbon fiber, new heat colored options, and a little bit of DLC.
Now, as far as blade finishes go, we're still looking at blasted, tumbled, and DLC. So no satins.
No satins this time. I mean, it's possible. We might do a couple.
Okay. All right. Okay.
We get asked that a lot, so it's everybody wants a satin or a polished finish, and
I had just watched Surge's drop of the stash boxes, and I DM'd him because the little skull he did reminded me of a custom deadlock that you guys did. Are custom deadlocks like? I know you get questions, so I'm just going to ask you, like, what's the deal? Like, is that ever a thing again, or are we just looking at the sort of? They're all custom, obviously, but you know what I'm saying, like something really special. Like we got some from you before with like Damascus and all kinds of craziness.
Yeah, and we'd like to do more of that, and with different engravings and Damascus, and sending him out to Surge and having him do some exotic ones. And we just posted the Surge version on our Instagram a couple days ago, and it got a ton of views, a lot of comments. The problem with it is, like, right now, we've got a bunch of equipment and a bunch of employees, and so I've turned more into a manager than a knife maker in a lot of ways. And so to do the really nice exotic stuff ends up taking a lot of my time. And so I do want to do them on small little runs, but it just kind of pulls me away from doing my other duties, and it slows down production. So when I can figure out a good way to balance that, or as my employees get more familiar with the process so that they need me less, then I can focus on doing some exotic stuff.
Right on. Yeah, that makes total sense. I've got to ask because that Surge post, and then I remembered seeing the Damascus ones. Those are awesome. A question about blade styles. For this last batch, you did single and double, but I know that you've got to be doing more double than single, or is it really?
Yes,
it's worth it to offer both, or I mean,
it is, and it's not that big of a deal to grind a single or a double. As far as once you're set up to grind doubles, then you grind a bunch of doubles and then change to a single. It's really not too big of a deal. I would say the ratio's probably 20% single and 80% double.
Okay.
But there's a lot of states where guys can't have a double edge. And so they get a single edge just because they can't get a double. And so I know that if I cut that out, I would get a lot of emails from people that, I'd love to have a deadlock, but I can't because I live in this state.
Right. Better to just offer it even at 20% just so you don't have to deal with people asking.
Yeah.
Okay.
and it makes people happy. So
Right. All those people in Texas who can't have double edges, and maybe Michigan, I think. Maybe.
I can't remember what states it is at the moment.
I know Texas is one of them. I don't remember if Michigan is or isn't.
It's all the lame ones.
Yeah.
Don't worry, Massachusetts is safe.
Well, yeah, you can't. Actually, on the books, I think you can have a 1-inch auto, but I don't know that anyone makes that.
A 1-inch.
So it's not really an issue. Yeah. All right. But anyway, so DLC is great though. I'm sure that will get people extremely excited. I'd love a deadlock to match my mud. That'd be cool. All black everything is always popular.
Yeah, DLC is great. So we've got some mock-ups of what we're going to be doing. So I have some DLC in stock that we can take pictures of the new options, and I really like we put one together that's all black, but it has like a blue anodized button and inlay and screws, and that looks really nice. So
okay.
So there should be a couple of fun options this next batch.
Nice. Any time frame on that? Just in the future? Fall? Spring?
No, pretty close. Pretty soon. Okay. Like I said, we're about 50 left in this batch. So I don't know. We're already a little behind as far as like taking pictures and getting everything prepped. So we'll probably start at least preparing for the drop next week as far as getting all of our information together. So anywhere in the next 2 to 4 weeks.
Okay. Wow. That is relatively soon. That's very soon, actually, considering that would have been basically just before Blade Show. If it had happened, which it's not going to.
I mean, it's happening,
right?
But,
just not where it normally happens.
And we haven't talked about it recently, but we're not so sure we're going yet. I don't know. We're gonna agonize over it.
Let's talk about it now.
Yeah. So I'm assuming you guys are going.
Probably.
Well,
Elijah's
like whatever. For me, I'm like,
I don't know.
I'll decide 2 days before. If I decide to, most likely what's gonna happen is like 3 days before. Jeremiah's gonna call me. He's like, "You want to go? You want to rent the car?" And then we'll just drive down last second.
Yeah, that's most likely what will happen. I don't at this moment I couldn't say yes or no, only because it seems so far away considering where we are now without getting into it too deep. So I don't know.
Then USN's 9 days later. Yeah, I want to go to USN. Hopefully that happens.
Is it really 9 days later? I knew it was close.
The show schedule is incredibly jammed.
It's pretty crazy. It's about 20 days apart.
Okay.
Isn't it 9 based on Jeremiah's list?
If you check the list I posted, it's not. It's too close.
CCAC is 5 days
Because you guys,
you're the only one that goes.
Well, but Gavin, you do Blade and USN, right? Those are your two shows.
That's right. Yeah.
So if you did go to Blade this year, would you go to USN or would you just choose one?
That's a good question. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do.
Las Vegas is pretty easy for us.
That's the spirit.
Blade takes some planning.
And it's also pretty fun.
Yeah. I mean, I enjoy them both. And Blade's always a good show, and USN's always good. The thing about Blade is I bought, hotel rooms already. And I think I have, if I cancel them 30 days before, then I get my money back. So that's kind of what I've been waiting for, is to wait until Blade is 30 days away and then decide whether or not I'm going to keep my...
The thing what you do here is, Gavin, is you use a burner card, and that way you don't ever get charged.
And it works so great for you in California.
That was not a hotel. That was a limo. That was definitely. They don't work on limos.
Look, it's circumstantial, all right? It's
unless you can outrun the driver.
Right. Okay. Sure.
Yeah. So I don't know. At this exact moment, I haven't been planning for Blade. I don't have any knives. 3 or 4 months ago, we were starting to put like a couple of knives to the side so that we had something for Blade, and then of course the whole world collapsed and we just sold those knives and quit thinking about it. So if I go, I've got to build up inventory to make it. So that's probably the bigger problem, is just having any inventory to go.
Right. Okay. Well, that makes total sense. It's I think it's seems so far in the future now. So I think a lot of people who are attending and have tables are just sort of putting off the decision perpetually until they can't put the decision off any further. And then it's like, okay, well, got to do something about this problem here.
Yeah. And the other thing is, I'm concerned about how many makers are going to show up and how many customers are going to be there. I mean, there's, on one hand, if there's less makers, well, then you'd have, more customers theoretically, but not if the customers don't want to come because there's not enough knife makers. So
what's the competition maybe? I don't know. Yeah, that's a tough one.
Yeah. So
I mean, just from a perspective of, as someone who just goes to just buy, I mean, it's somewhat relative, but as a person who's not a dealer, it seems like a crazy time to go and blow money on knives. And I don't want to start playing the stock market here with Blade Show and put out any bad vibes, but I don't see a lot of other people being like, now's a great time to go buy $1,000 knife. Like, no, I don't, wife or no wife, I don't think that anyone can convince themselves that's a good idea. But maybe things will be totally different by then. I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't really seen, on our end, I haven't seen a decline in sales. Of course, we've already had deposits, but sending out invoices for the remaining balance, I'd say 90% of the people, let me back up. We actually sent out an email to everybody that's left on the list asking them, okay, are you anxious and ready to pay? Do you want to be sent an invoice so that you can make payments over time? Or do you want us to wait until you're at the very end of the batch and send you an invoice? And 90% of the people said they want to pay right now if they could. I had just a couple of people that wanted to make payments on their invoice. So we sent them the invoice and then they paid it in full, which was not quite what we were going for, but it was fine. It worked out. And then there was just maybe 2 people that wrote and said they'd like to be, the very last. And but other than that, everybody seems super anxious to get a deadlock. We've had people reach out and say, hey, we know that times are tough. Has anybody dropped off the list? We'd love to get on it. We want to buy a knife. Can we take their place? So So anyways, that's what we've been experiencing. And if we do this drop in 3 or 4 weeks, that'll be telling to see, how quick things sell out in that direction.
So when you're talking about a drop, I know previously your last drop, you had a certain amount of spots that you opened, and now you're talking about streamlining the process to do maybe just carbon fiber or just titanium. So, we're talking about probably a lot less spots that you're going to open the list up for then.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I haven't come up with a number yet.
Is that a scientific process, or is it just kind of? Is it just like?
Oh yeah, it's very methodical. We take everything into account.
We have a dartboard.
Yeah,
here.
I was gonna say.
I was going to say I have a dartboard in my shop. Whatever it lands on is the rough number.
That seems doable.
And a lot of it depends on where we're at in 3 weeks. As far as, like I said, we're already making parts for that batch, and so I'll probably. Yeah, I just don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know.
Cool.
I like putting things off to the last possible moment.
Well, so far so good.
Yeah.
Without getting too far into it, though, I know you guys had said. I mean, you're in a bubble in a couple of ways. You're lucky enough to have a product that is, undeniably in demand. And then you also have, your location. So you have these two bubbles working on your side. You're in a place that is relatively unaffected by our current, environment, and your product is in demand, so you can continue to make stuff. It sounds like it's a good and a bad thing. Just as you don't know what to do next because you're not sure what everyone's going to want or what everyone's going to react to. Thankfully, sales are strong. So you're good.
Yeah, and it seems like sales are going to keep going strong for us. So yeah, I think everything's going to be great. And as you and I have talked before, yeah, we've got like a little commune here. We've got a trailer park that we own, and most of the people that work for us live in the park. Right. And we're all pretending we're working from home. And so, which, we literally are. So, we just kept working through the pandemic and didn't even skip a beat. So,
which is great because you're right. So you don't have a lot of people coming and going from your compound. There's just the same people every day doing the same thing. So, that's kind of ideal. You don't have any outsiders carrying anything or, people you're unsure of their social circles.
That's right.
The UPS driver is the only company we have.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
We get.
Yeah, and then you guys get Amazon out there. So I know you said you're totally stocked up. There's no supply problems as far as, human needs.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, our life really hasn't changed that much. I don't make it to Boise but once a month. And so, here in town, they've essentially opened everything up. In our little corner of the world, everything's just been the same.
Have you been finding issues sourcing? Like, I get a lot of my 5 finisher animals from Shars. And Shars has been shut down for almost a month.
Yeah, we don't buy a lot of.
I use.
We don't buy a lot of Chinese crap end mills. So
all Shars end mills are USA made stuff.
Oh, are they? I thought Shars was making a lot of stuff in China.
No, Shars' business model last year changed a lot. All the carbide stuff is USA made, and some other stuff. They're like the only guys that I really know that make a 5 flute 1/8 end mill that's stub length that I like. I order those by the 50, and I go through a lot of those. Everything I run almost uses those. I actually like their 3/16 5 flute finishers more than the other ones that I use. You'd be surprised. The pricing, some of it's better, some of it's not. They're just a quality cutter. And 2 other manufacturers that I order end mills from, they're also closed. I was surprised since manufacturers are staying open, and you would think that they need them.
Yeah, I haven't really had a problem with it actually.
I'm running 3 production jobs now, and like I'm like low on all my end mills, and I have to figure out find different suppliers for certain custom stuff, sizes that I use.
Yeah, that's strange. I've been using like GAR and Micro 100, stuff like that, and yeah, I haven't had any issues getting end mills.
No, those manufacturers are usually going. But a lot of the ones that carry like varieties, I've been having issues sourcing some of it.
So just the tooling to even make the thing.
Yeah, and some of it's like I don't know if they had an outbreak in the company, and that's why they have to shut down because you normally like manufacturers are open, so suppliers need to be open too to keep them fed. So I had to for all the standard stuff you could find that like some of the odd end mills I use, it's like a 3/16 end mill instead of a corner radius at the end. It's a chamfer.
Right.
Stuff like that, like I kind of have to find other sources for because that's not easy. I'm going to find.
You know, that also reminds me, Gavin, Nick and I were talking about this the other day about proper steels for DLC, and I know that my mud has 20 CV on it. Were you going to do that for the Deadlocks? What steel were you going to use? Do you have an idea of what steel you were going to use for the new batch?
Yeah, I was going to stick with 20 CV. Okay. And so I guess it's some of the lower grade steels have a problem with it, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because like DLC has a cure temperature of like 600 degrees.
Right.
So like any like ABL has a temper at 350, a lot like 154 CM. A lot of these manufacturers are doing DLC finishes on like 154. They're just dropping at least 2 or 3 Rockwell points if you do that. Like I'm doing a DLC batch of something right now, and I just ordered 3V for it because it has a temper of 1,000 degrees. I actually might do titanium nitride finishes on it, like end mill finishes. I might sharpen the knife, finish it, sharpen it, and then send it out so the initial edge has the coating on it.
And so, what's the temper on 20 CV?
I don't know. I don't work with it. You tell me that.
Oh, I don't know. I send it to Peter's Heat Treat. I don't.
I'm curious right now. Actually, I'll Google it. But the closer you are to that temperature, less points you're dropping. But like 154 CM and ABL, they have tempers of like 325. So you're almost passing double on that.
Yeah, right.
So.
And that blade just turns to spaghetti after the DLC. Oh boy, won't be able to cut anything.
No, but it looks the same, but you're that big of a difference. You're dropping a couple points.
Yeah, no, talking to customers about the differences in steels and wear resistance. It's just
like you look at Spyderco, they're using S30V, and that's fine because S30V has about temper of about 600, 650.
Yeah.
So 20 CV is also on the lower end, depending on how they're doing it. Because like if they're doing a high quench on it, you can temper it out at about. See, it depends because you could temper it at about 400. I mean, temper at about 400, but you could also temper it at about 1,000. So there's 2 methods for it. Usually, those high tempers, if they're optional, I hear tend to rust, are more likely to rust. But again, if you're DLC coating it, it doesn't really matter. M390 has it's a lower temper than I thought. I would think it would have a higher temper because the quench temperature and heat treat temperature if it's over 2,000 degrees.
Well,
I remember when I was setting up all the DLC stuff. I was telling them what steels I was using, and they told me it was okay, but I might double check that.
Well, if you look at the heat treat chart, there's ways to heat treat it to do a higher temper. For example, if you're doing ass quench for 2150 plus cryo, it's a really high heat treat. But at that point, you could go to a higher temper and get the higher Rockwells out of it. So you could, depending on the heat treat recipe you follow, if you're not going to DLC them, you could go on to a little bit of a higher scale for it. But I look into it. It's just a pet peeve I've always had. Like I look at companies that like be DLCing steels that like, and I've talked to one company in particular about it, and they're like, yeah, it doesn't affect it. Like then the other employee at the company is like, yeah, I've talked to my boss about it. And I'm like, okay. So it sounds like okay. Like you guys just kind of ignoring it. It's cool.
I mean, I think it might be one of those things where it's chain of command pay grade issue. I don't know, but I know that
I think it just falls into that. Like, no one uses these things.
Okay, anyway, well, yeah, that's also a possibility. Sure.
It'll still stay hard enough to where it'll function as a folder. Like if it's 61, it'll probably drop down to like 58, 57. Right. So it'll still function mechanically, but like it's like, oh, these guys aren't going to cut anything with it. Anyway.
That's my favorite argument. Is the beginning of the email is, this is not the blade steel I want, even though I'm never going to use this knife. And I'm like, well, okay, why are we doing this? Like, why are we doing this?
Well, and I'll reach out to Peter's Heat Treat and see what they're doing, and then tell them that I'm going to be DLC coding them. So, but
yeah, like Ty Allen, like the one you see on your Animal is the blue one. It's like Ty Allen or Ty whatever it is. That one's like 1,000, and I haven't really seen anyone coat knives with that. So I'm specifically doing a batch right now to coat my knives in that. And I don't know how it'll affect the edge, if it'll be better or worse or what. Not, but it should be better if you're cutting things like cardboard that are abrasive. But like I said, I'm going to try to sharpen them first and then send them out to the initial sharpening has the coating on it.
Yeah, of course it won't be as sharp. It'll last longer, but it won't be as sharp.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know how it affects the edge, if it adds any thickness to it or not. I'd probably sharpen those instead of my 1,000 grit and then polish. I'll probably go like a 400 and then polish, or something toothier, to where like the coating won't smoothen it out, but actually maybe improve the toothiness. I don't know. It's all theoretical until I do it. So I'm in the process of machining those blanks at the moment.
I didn't know that you were going to do tile-in on those. The only time I've seen that is
I was going to do a DLC when I mentioned it to you, and I was like, oh wait, it's in that temperature field, but I could.
Mike at Tai 2 Designs in Hawaii, he's done some flashlights, and I think he ran the gamut of coatings, but I think those were all titanium. In any case, another question I had about Deadlocks, believe it or not, we had talked a little bit about packaging in the past. Is that
gotta bring up packaging?
I'm curious. We're on to a new batch, so I was just probing to see, if it's, I'm trying to get all the gossip I can out of this new batch thing.
Have they been coming in like a paper bag?
Have you ever gotten a knife from Gavin? No? Okay. Interestingly enough, they come in a leather bag, but that's okay.
Oh, I did. They came in that leather bag with a bead. I had the beetle.
Yeah. That's there you go. Which is a great leather bag, by the way, but.
Yes, thank you. We've come a long ways. We've
made the leather bag longer.
The leather bag's gotten bigger.
We used to send them in little sample bags. So if you see some of our really old knives come up, like a dog or a toad, sometimes people will have the original sample bag that we sent them in. And so anybody that's not familiar with a sample bag, it's kind of like it's not Trivac, but it's like a cloth.
Yeah, I'm not sure just how they make it, but it's made for sampling mineral deposits. And so we buy them from a company that deals in mining supplies.
Oh, okay.
And I used to use them in prospecting and geochem sampling and different things like that. And so that's what they were. They were just kind of a treated, not exactly canvas, but something like that, with a drawstring.
And then they had like a yellow label on them, and so we would, write the date and the knife and some type of brief description of the knife, and then throw it in a bag and sell it that way. So
very McMaster-esque.
Yeah, kind of. And then we started doing the leather bags, and we've talked about getting more of a presentation box and getting fancy and doing something like that. But it's, I don't know, it just takes so much time and effort to do that. And most people just throw that stuff away. So it's been tough to put our focus on that. But as we get bigger and as we do more runs, I think it'll be something that's more expected of us. But right now we've been getting away with it because people just want a knife, and I don't think they really want to wait around for us to make boxes. I think they would just rather have the knife. So that's kind of where we're at. But maybe at some point there'll be a nice fancy box.
Right. That's fair. Last podcast we talked about merchandise of all or any kind. Okay.
Yeah.
We're about the same place on that, aren't we?
Yeah. I should have listened to that last podcast again so I could tell you the exact same thing.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, it's good to ask.
Well, we want to. We keep thinking about it, and then it's just it's a low priority right now, merchandise. But
I mean, I think I got a mouse pad when I got my mud. That was pretty cool.
Yeah. Not everybody gets one of those. We did the chapstick. And essentially the chapstick just fell into our lap because a friend of mine started raising bees, and then they were making products with that. And then she just came over one day with a mock-up of chapstick with our logo on it, and I was like, cool, sure, I'll take 100 of them.
Nice.
And we took it to a knife show and gave them away, and I think we were out in the first 30 minutes or something. Like, they just went crazy. And not only that, every knife show people ask us if we still have chapstick.
It's actually pretty good chapstick.
I got some chapstick.
Yeah. So, and I have people that will come a year later and they have the same tube of chapstick in their pocket.
It does, and it's a rather inventive giveaway in an industry of stickers and like sharp things. It's like, oh, chapstick, it's practical. So so that just kind of fell into our lap. We do need to get on the merchandise, shirts and things like that. The mouse pads, I kind of stole that from Serge because at a knife show, he'll put his knives on mouse pads, and it just looked really cool. So we started doing that as well, and then we just give them away at the show, or if we have a couple extra, I send them to people that we really, really like. Okay, all right, fair enough.
So yeah, but eventually, we should probably even put the mouse pad on the site and all that stuff. But it's just, again, the focus has just been on how do we get Deadlocks out every week.
Right. Which, to be fair, is actually probably exactly what you should be doing in all ways, shapes, and form. That's people are out there, connected or disconnected from the process, understanding or not understanding how this works. But, you guys are there every day building knives and perfecting this whole process of getting Deadlocks into the customer's hands. So, I mean, that's the deal. That's what's supposed to be happening.
And like I said, even, once we get everything kind of evened out, all of our processes working really well, the employees know what to do, then that'll kind of free up some of my time so I can make fancier knives. I can get all the merchandise stuff lined out. But we're still in transition, going from R&D to production. So we're in that in-between area right now.
I gotcha. So, I mean, you keep bringing up, and I have to ask, because you keep bringing up the employees. I know you got the new machines. You have a compound. Do you feel like releasing any details on that? I mean, like, how many armed guards do you have up there exactly?
Well, I can't tell you how many armed guards we have, but I think we've got 7 or 8 employees.
Wow. Okay.
Something like that. And we're actually in the process of hiring again. So we're looking to add at least 1, maybe 2 more people.
Oh, wow. Okay. So, I mean, that's an exponential expansion. That's pretty serious. Like 3 machines and 2 new employees. Like, you guys are up and cranking over there.
It's quite a bit, yeah.
Yeah. So
full-fledged production.
Exactly. So keeping all that straight, like I said, it's kind of a new thing on us, but it's been going pretty well so far.
All right. And you and I talked about this, but I do want to ask you on the cast, if there was one part of the process that you're outsourcing for the Deadlock, what would that be that you could insource? Anything, money, capital, machines, people. What would be the one thing that you would say, this is the thing that I would bring in-house right now?
Well, I'd say machines. And so probably a water jet is what we need next. I actually just recently, we've started, from the beginning of this year, we've started itemizing our invoices for outside services, just to kind of give us a better idea of how much we're spending on EDM and water jet and lathe parts and stuff like laser and so then we'll make a little bit better decision on exactly what we need to bring in-house. But just every time you bring something in-house, it makes everything smoother and easier, and you can hit timelines better. It just sucks being beholden to another company, waiting for them to get around to it. So the more we can bring in, the better. The only problem I have right now is, like, if I went and bought a water jet tomorrow, I got to hire somebody to run it. And hiring hasn't been that easy. We're in a smaller town, so I don't have a very big pool to draw on locally. So I've got to bring somebody in from Boise, which is about 45 minutes or so from us. So that's been a little tricky, getting the exact person we want. And even though the whole world's shut down, so many people are on unemployment, and they're getting big unemployment checks. A lot of people are getting bigger checks than they get as their regular job. So it's not like everybody's out trying to find a job. So that's been tricky.
Yeah, everyone's been complaining about being out of work. I'm like, look, like, everyone's on unemployment getting more money. Like, the only ones that are shit out of work are like business owners, because we don't get anything.
Technically, you do. I mean, they changed the rules so that you can file for unemployment. But still, the people that are, yeah, right. But the people that are looking for jobs are ones that didn't have a job beforehand, or they didn't have their job long enough to apply or qualify for unemployment benefits.
Yeah, well, what you were saying about outsourcing, that was the same thing with me. I kind of got really frustrated with outsourcing unreliable water jetters, unreliable lists, heat treaters. Oh, sorry, it's blade shell season. It's going to take 3 months. I'm like, what the hell? And all of a sudden, there's more knife makers out there now. So then you start using guys that like aren't blade specific. You finally get guys that are good enough to do it, but no one knows about them in the knife industry. Eventually, people start finding out about them in the knife industry, and then they have the same blade show weights or USN weights. I'm like, I haven't outsourced heat treating in about 2 years, and right now I'm doing the first batch outsourcing again. At this point, I only outsource water jetting, and I don't even water jet steel anymore. Every time I go pick up steel for my water jetter, because he sells steel as well, he's like, oh, so am I going to cut those? I'm like, no, I'll send you some titanium at some point. Like, I only water jet titanium now. And then next thing is to get a surface grinder to stop outsourcing that.
Is there any part of the Deadlock, or let me rephrase that. Is there any machine that you don't need to make the Deadlock? Like you said, lathe, laser, you said Haas. I mean, coatings aside, does that knife run the gamut as far as machines go? I mean, do you use all of the available technology in our industry?
No. So the first one that comes to mind is like a stamping machine. So I don't have any stamped parts. I don't have any printed parts. We don't really use any like CNC routers, but that's, I'm essentially pretending that our machining center is a CNC router for cutting, the carbon fiber and stuff like that. But I could have somebody cut those on a router. That's a tough question, because there's a lot of specialized weird equipment out there that I could start naming.
Sure. Okay.
That doesn't really apply. But I think the other way to say it is how you started the question was we're using lasers, water jet, machining centers, EDM machines, lathes, and I think that's all that we're using.
Okay. So I mean, pretty much, yeah. That's to make
We're
that you
using
need a lot.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow. That's crazy. So for the laser, what do you just mark the spine of the batch on the?
No, the laser we use actually just on one part these days, but one of the internal locking parts in the blade, I call it the swivel. That part is laser cut.
Okay.
Mainly because it's made out of 410. It's a thin part. It only needs a profile, and then I drill 2 holes in it. So it's just the most cost-effective way, other than trying to stamp it or fine blank it. To make that part.
I gotcha. All right. So yeah, but still, it wasn't. You said machines, and then you said water jetting, but water jetting continues to be the industry slowdown for you guys and for a lot of people. Like, it's just the damn water jetters. Like, that's
they're not the most reliable people.
Turmoil.
Those machines aren't really reliable.
Wait on the water jet.
Hey, Gavin, I have a question. Is there any internal milling that happens on the carbon fiber?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Because I'm looking at the scale now, and there's almost 2 tools to the outside. I'm looking into picking up. They make those like the Chinese CNC routers, but they finally made a steel construction one that's meant to run coolant. I was gonna say that'd be a great option if it's only 1 or 2 tools, but if there's internal milling, it makes things complicating.
Yeah, I don't know why they don't make those little CNCs with tool changers.
Well, they're starting to now. So they made that steel frame one that runs coolant. It's like $2,300. I want to pick one of those up right now for fixed blade handles. Technically, they make tool changers for them now as well. You have to just rig them up yourself, and then you would have to buy one without a spindle, buy the ISO 20 version of the spindle, and then they make an attachment you could put on there for a 10 tool ISO. And it might be a thing that I want to do eventually because I'm tired of running carbon fiber and composite in my mill.
Yeah, and then I think right now I'm using 17 tools to cut the overlays.
Wow. Okay, that's not what I expected.
Yeah, there's a lot of tools in that.
I don't know what's going on the inside. The outside looks pretty simple. That's what I was like.
Yeah, and a lot of that's because the tools wear out so quick. And so, like just on the outside, I've, I go around it with 2 different chamfer tools, a rough and a finish. Same thing with the profile. I rough and finish. I actually cheat on the profile because I use just an offset. So I rough with the first section of the end mill, and then I finish with the second section of the end mill. And then I've got to pocket it. So I use, big end mill to pocket, and then I come in with a little end mill and finish up the corners. And then I come in with a finish profile on the inlay. Because you cut carbon fiber is such a pain. You get, with a brand new end mill, you get like 3 or 4 parts, and then it starts to get dull, and then it'll wear in. It'll stay fairly consistent for a while, and then all of a sudden you'll start dropping off, and your dimensions will get all weird.
It's people don't realize how hard it is to keep dimensional tolerances on composite.
Yeah,
it's not like on metal. You quickly start seeing the finish go dull, and then okay, like it's definitely changing in tolerances. And carbon fiber.
Hello,
Nick. I think you might have accidentally hit the mute button.
Yeah. My computer went on standby and hit mute. It's kind of hard to visually see the animal wearing until it starts to fray, but way before the carbon fiber visually changes, like the tolerances are changing. Like I was surprised when I did a big batch of G10 when I first got the mill. I was like, wow, I just cut like 90 sets of scales with the same chamfer mill. Like cutting G10 is great. And then I pull out the end mill, like the end mill's still intact. I look at it, and the whole end mill, the chamfer face looks like a staircase because it's not wearing where the glue layers are. but where the fiberglass layers are, it was just chewing into it, so it became like a serrated end mill. And I still have an end mill in the shop because it just looks really interesting. But G10 was so forgiving that it was still cutting it.
Yeah,
I thought that the steps that I felt in it was just the layers or after sandblasting, and then I realized that was just it started to cut like a staircase chamfer.
Kind of weird how you think that someone would have thought about making a material that would, be purposely for CNC. It
Not really.
That, Well,
carbide's carbide. They do the coatings, but have you messed around with those the composite end mills that look like burr bits?
A little bit. I didn't really like them.
Makes one.
Yeah, I didn't like it very much. I'm not generally cutting that deep, and so the serrations don't really help that much unless you're cutting into a deep pocket or a deep profile.
That makes sense.
I don't know. Harvey sent me a bunch of end mills to try, and I was cutting them in marbled carbon fiber, and I did the speeds and feeds they suggested, and it was horrible. And so I just went back to my old speeds and feeds and just quit trying to deal with it. Because one of the problems is that it weakens it a little bit by putting in all those little serrations. And so mine just snapped right on one of the serrations. But one thing I found, somebody told me to try is uncoated. And I've had way better luck with uncoated tools than coatings on carbon fiber.
When I need a better finish and less fraying, I'll go uncoated. They just don't last nearly as long because they don't have that abrasive finish around it. For a job shop that I did 3 years ago, it was a special type of carbon fiber that actually had glass in it as well. It was killing tools, and it needed like most of the stuff that I do in composite don't have dimensional tolerances really. Just it's a fixed blade handle or a liner, like whatever it is. I used PVD end mills, the PVD tipped end mills, and they're like $150 for an 1/8-inch end mill. But wow, they lasted. The finish is great. The tolerances were barely ever changing because the end mill just kind of lasted. It didn't really get smaller. It would just no longer cut, and it would keep tolerances until it just stopped cutting.
Huh. Yeah, that's strange. I had almost the opposite. I was using coated end mills, and they were working okay. They would the coating on the tip would wear off after 2 parts. And then because there's a coating, it makes it a little bit duller because it rounds, the coating adds dimension. So it rounds the sharp edge.
I'm not talking about coated. I'm talking about PVD tipped end mills.
Right. Okay.
So they were pretty much, I guess they were ceramic or I don't know. It didn't look like an end mill. It was just the very tip was the material. And like I said, 1/8-inch end mill was like $150. They were expensive as all hell, but I ran the entire job with the same end mills.
Yeah, I'm cheap. I like buying cheaper end mills.
The same when it comes to normal stuff, because it doesn't really. I haven't really seen much of a difference between $10 3/16 end mill and a $22 3/16 end mill if it's the same flutes and all the same coatings. The only time I see a difference is dimensional tolerances. But for me, I'm not running crazy tolerant parts. I don't have probes, so I usually every time I break an end mill, I'll just dial it in.
Yeah.
But for what you do, it's always kind of the same thing. Repeat. They're expensive, but they were worth it, especially for that job shop. It was a lot of parts in that carbon fiber material for some tool for a firefighter device. But it was great. I've never used it again because for none of my stuff, because I run everything in small batches and never makes sense to. But check them out. Might be when you definitely something you might help you out.
Yeah.
Right on. Gavin,
it's quite the tangent.
Is there anything that you guys wanted to share that we haven't asked?
Not that I can think of. I mean, we might have some things up our sleeve, but we're not quite ready to divulge that information.
Okay.
So maybe we'll be the first to be on 3 times.
They say that the 3rd time is the charm.
Hopefully.
But you better have goddamn t-shirts.
Doesn't involve something smaller.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have T-shirts and a box. And actually, I shouldn't say that because we probably won't have any of that stuff.
All right.
Maybe I'll just like put a sticker on a shirt and send it to you.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. That works. All right. That works.
Oh, they weren't called PVD end mills. They were called CVD end mills.
CBD
CBD
end mills.
Oh, those are like, I want the THC.
Yeah,
right.
Whoa, wait a second.
Do we know what that stands for?
It's something. I know D is diamond. I think it's like a ceramic diamond type material. Polycrystalline diamond tipped is what they see them here.
Polycrystalline. Right. Okay.
Yeah, I've heard arguments both ways, but the consensus that I got was that it's more economical just to run uncoated in mills. But I've never done any actual testing myself. I just started using uncoated and really liked them.
Yep.
Cool. All right. So you've got some secrets, but that'll have to wait till next time. We're coming up on finishing this batch, and we're looking forward to the next batch. And you have newsletters, so you have multiple newsletters that people should sign up for, and text message alerts. Remind me of the newsletters.
So yeah, the newsletters, if you go to our website, there's a link there somewhere to sign up for individual newsletters depending on what you're interested in. So we have one newsletter that's just Hawk Knives, which is general information. And we do most of our customer sales that way. So we offer a reselling service for people. Send us your knife. We'll give it a spa treatment, put it up for sale, and then we take 10% out of that. And then we have specific newsletters. So if you're really interested in Deadlock, we've got that. We've got Mud newsletter, Orbit, and I don't know. There's probably another one I can't think of. And then the text messages, I'm not really sure. I know that on my Instagram, there's a place to sign up for text message alerts, but I'm not sure about the website. I'm just gonna guess it's on the website.
Okay, and what's the URL for the website?
Hawkknifedesigns.com.
Cool. Awesome. All right. Well, on that note, I want to say thank you for taking time, Grant and Gavin, for coming on a second time. That was very brave. That's very brave.
Well, thank you. We promise to be more interesting next time.
Oh, that's what you said the first time, and you were just as interesting this time.
I lied that time.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm a prospector. I have a license.
Oh shoot, that's true. All right. I'll hold you to it. Awesome. Well, guys, yeah, thanks so much for coming on, and I will absolutely hold you to it. Third time's the charm. We'll be back for more info about all the knives.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you guys.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It was fun.
Absolutely.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks.